Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good to
Good
see
morning.
everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
Morning,
morning.
ma'am.
Good morning.
Okay. Good. Everybody cameras on, so that's good. So, as Margareta said, my name is Sarah, and I'm a geriatric social worker, retired for a while, and I've been recruited to assist in this project. And for the next hour and a half, I would like to speak to all of you about culture and relationship. And we have a screen that we'd like to share with you. And first of all, I'd like to commend you all for coming to Israel and to be part of our caregiving community. And I think that's very brave and honorable that you chose to do that. It's a difficult job as it is, taking care of disabled people, and to do it in a foreign country with people that are, not your family or not in your community is really a very brave and courageous step that you're doing. And I honor you for doing that. And welcome to our community of caregivers. So I'm going to share the screen. Hang on. Did we do that? Share the screen.
Hello, good morning.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. And now you can see the presentation that's behind us here. And I'm going to talk about the things that are going to be, presented here on the screen in this presentation. And I invite you to, participate as you feel, comfortable. You can write comments, and we will have a pause for about 5 or 10 minutes in the middle. And, your participation and comments and reflections are very, very welcome. And I think we would all be enriched by them. So be courageous and participate. So let's begin. So basic values in caregiving work. What is that all about? I think that values in general in the Judeo-Christian world, and maybe not just, and all over the world, they're basically the same, right? We all want to be happy and respect the being work. Values in caregiving work: human dignity, autonomy, tolerance, empathy, compassion, and care. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those a little bit more. What do these values mean in caregiving work? Actually, that is our toolbox. I think we all know that the knowledge that we have in terms of diseases and in terms of, different devices and so on, is all part of our toolbox. But the values that we take care of in building our own personality is basically the major part of our toolbox in the caregiving work. And the more we invest in ourselves and in developing our own personality and abilities, the better we are at our profession. So what is human dignity? Values that refers to a person's unique traits as a person. Dignity is the right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake and be treated ethically. Respect your feelings, opinions, beliefs, and of course his body. Maintain your patient's privacy and dignity. Well, I want to talk a little bit about that because, it seems obvious, but maybe not so. Maybe not so. I hope that in a few minutes, some of you will share with us experiences that you've had in caregiving situations, perhaps within your family or community, or perhaps abroad, and you can share with us your experience. But when you come into a person's home and you're from a different culture, different country, speaking a different language, have a different persona, in terms of your facial features and body altogether, it's different culture. So respecting a person's humanity and privacy and thoughts and feelings becomes a whole different kind of a situation. Nothing's obvious about that. And so, you may encounter some prejudices because of not being familiar. I think we all have prejudices about people that are strangers. We all have had some kind of information about what Filipinos are like or caregivers are like. And perhaps you've also heard some information about what Israelis are like. And, but that's all generalizations. And then you have to be very, very careful not to make judgments, obviously, and to get to know the people that are, in front of your face. That's it. Everyone is different. You're different. You're not all the Filipinos, and they're not all the Israelis. And we'll talk a little bit more about culture and so on. But first thing to understand is, patients' humanity, privacy, thoughts and feelings, opinions, beliefs, and body. All of those things are, are titles to such a whole world of issues. So first of all, you're coming into a person's home, and this is his private place. This is his domain. This is where he, feels safe and comfortable. And a stranger is coming for people, for everyone, I think, to be invaded into your private safe. So they may have agreed to have a caregiver come, going to be the last one, and stay with them for a while. It's like, having a stranger come into your life. And this is a very, very big adjustment time for everyone. And it's a crisis. It's a crisis for everyone. You're not a guest. You're not a family member. Perhaps they've had other people coming into their home, in their daily routine. But someone that comes to live with them really has different expectations, and it means adjustments and an invasion of privacy in many ways. And so here we are talking about privacy and body, and and all of those things that are very, very personal, and having a stranger come in. So you must be minded not only of your own anxiety of the situation of coming into someone's home, but also of your client. And of course, it's not just one person as a client. Usually it's the whole family, usually, not always, but usually. Perhaps they have a spouse, perhaps they have children living in the home or very involved in the caregiving. So all of that is, everybody is on edge. Everybody has to make a judgment. Everybody has to be very minded and respectful. Okay, so first you want to ask questions, and you want to be very, very, very thoughtful about trying to understand the cues, because you are in a different culture base. We'll talk a little bit more about the culture in a few minutes. Autonomy. Autonomy is the capacity to make an informed and uncoerced decision, self-directing freedom, and essentially moral independence. Give your patient, I like to say that they're not just patients, they're also clients, right? They're clients, and we provide a service. So you give your patient the right to choose what he prefers to do, where he wants to go, and allow him to make his own decisions. So of course, this is very important, because one of the main things that disabled people are losing on a minute by minute pace is their autonomy. And there's nothing more degrading than losing a person's autonomy, their ability to do things. And once a person has come to be their caregiver, that is like a stamp on their passport that they are, already not able to do many of their, day-to-day functions on their own. And this is a very big crisis for people. So you must be minded about that. And also, until you know your client absolutely really well, you must allow them to be leading any kind of situation that's at hand. So he has to choose where he goes, what he does, when to eat, how much to eat, what time of day, and so on. He must manage his own routine daily, and daily schedule to fit yourself into his needs and to his, whatever he's used to. And until you know otherwise, that his decisions may harm him or may not be appropriate for him, then you must consult, the family and so on, to see if you choose otherwise for him. But it's very important to allow, things make up his entire world. And so it's very important that you be minded, for us young, healthy people, it's like just getting through it so we continue with the rest of our day. But for them, it's their entire energy, depriving of energy and sources of, whatever. So this is their day, consists of all of those tiny little things, and they must be tiniest things, makes them feel more independent, more worthwhile, and more important. Accepting the action, idea, object, or person, which one can sometimes dislike or disagree with. Be tolerant to your patient and give yourself time to get to know each other, even if you don't agree with him, and sometimes and always respect him. So, this is obvious in one sense, but not so easy to accomplish, obviously, because, maybe client has not come across, people from the Philippines are strangers, people that speak differently, behave differently, smile differently, sometimes smell differently. And for you as well. And maybe they have things that they want to say or do, or in the way they say them that is offensive. So we must be non-judgmental. And this is where our professional self-control, even if he does say things that we don't agree with or has opinions that seem to us, off balance and so on. This is tolerance, right? Allowing it to go by, not responding, not reacting, being there, listening. That's them. You're not there, to judge them and so on, or to teach them otherwise. Empathy. Empathy is the capacity to understand, feel what another person is experiencing from within his frame of reference. That is the definitions of empathy encompass a broad range of emotional states. Try to empathize with your patient's physical and emotional conditions. Obviously, this is a very difficult situation. And sometimes, we can empathize with the person's pain, physical pain, or with the person's, perhaps sadness or loss. But, it's very difficult, obviously, because if you know who he was, what his life was all about, it's obviously difficult. So I encourage you, part of getting to know a person and becoming a better professional is to know where a person's coming from in terms of his emotional state of mind, his psychological state of mind. Ask questions. Tell them, ask them to tell their stories, their life ambitions, their successes, their disappointments, perhaps their traumas, most people in Israel, especially elderly people, Israel is a young country, so they've been immigrants by themselves. They've come to a new place with new language, with new culture, with, having to deal with many of the same issues that perhaps you need to deal with now, being a stranger in a strange place. So in that respect, you can definitely try to empathize how they've managed, how they've conquered difficulties and so on. Empathy, very important. And I think that probably I would assume that this is, kind of part of most caregivers' personality. And if you've chosen this profession and have made this long journey all the way across the continent to, to be here and to deal with these issues, I assume that it's part of your personality as well. But to be minded of how important it is, especially in this new kind of a situation, it's very important. Compassion, okay? Sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering and misfortune of others. That's part of our personality, I think, as caregivers. We have a tendency to see all of the people that need some kind of sympathy in our area of surrounding us and kind of drawn to them. And so, yes, you've made a profession of it, so good for you. And compassion motivates people to go out of their way and help the physical, mental, and emotional pains that others and them. Well, what am I reading here? Not coming clear. Okay. Out of their way to help physical, mental, and emotional pains of another and themselves. Well, that's probably part of your personality as well. And if it isn't, it's definitely part of our professional, life. I've been a social worker for all of my adult life, and I have a tendency to think that I see the world through the eyes of a social worker, no matter where I am. If I'm not at work, if I'm, sitting in a movie or talking to people, this is just, part of our personality, I think. And your profession becomes part of who you are, obviously, and you choose your profession because of who you are. All of that's part of our care, right? The provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. And this is very important. We're going to talk about forming relationships a little later on, but obviously having the confidence that you're there to take care of a person's needs and that he has the confidence that you will do so, having his best interest in mind, is what this is all about. So I invite you to think about what I spoke and what is, in your opinion, the most important value of caregiving work. And are there any values you believe that are important in caregiving work that I haven't mentioned yet? Well, we can take a 5-minute break, and I would really like for you to, to share with us before we go on to the next issue, which you may have seen on the slide, gender and caregiving issues. But before that, I really would appreciate it if any of you, some of you, most of you, all of you would like to comment either in the, in the chat, or perhaps turn your microphone on and, and share with us an experience that you've had and, success in this kind of a situation. Margareta, we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll come back with that.
That's the plan.
Okay, 5 minutes. See you all.
Sunog yung niluto ko.
Anyone else like to share? Margareta, are you back with us as well?
Hi.
Hi, Annette. Okay.
Yeah. Annie Kathy.
Okay.
So I think another one would be open communication and being honest. So for you to work well with your employer, you must have an open communication regarding about the things that you encounter every day, both of you. So you will have a good and harmonious relationship. And so you really have to be honest with what you think. Perhaps you can share ideas and share some thoughts just in case. So both of you could understand each other. Though I know that communication would be very difficult during this time because you have different languages. So for us as a caregiver, we really have to adjust and work on the language perhaps. So yeah, I think that's for me.
Catherine, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. You're absolutely right. Being honest, straightforward, and having a good relationship is the key to any kind of a, any kind of a professional, not even a professional, any kind of communication. Being honest and straightforward is absolutely key. And you're right. At the beginning, the way you're going to be communicating, first of all, I see that you're a take charge person. So that's very important, to take responsibility to manage a situation, because that is, part of being the caregiver, to take responsibility for what is going on. And voicing your opinion is very important as well. But, like you said, at the beginning, it is your it's always your responsibility, our responsibility in that respect. But communication is difficult in the beginning because of the culture barrier, because of difficulties in language. You obviously have a wonderful command of English, but I don't know if if your client will also have such a good command of the language of English anyway. And then, there's all the other cues in terms of communication that are so very important. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about that, in the next presentation. But yes, body language and all the other types of communication that don't involve language. And perhaps sometimes our clients are not communicative in terms of language altogether because of, physical disabilities that prevent them from being able to use language in the same way that we think about it. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I see that you're already you're hyped up for the situation. And Michelle as well. Does anyone else like to share, their thoughts about values and caregiving that, are important and being minded about them, especially in the beginning or all the time? Mike, what do you think? Oh, someone else interrupting?
Okay, I want to
Okay.
share my opinion also. It's a very important that the quality of giving is oriented, and for the important value is treat them like your own family.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I didn't see your name. I only see a number by your can you tell us your name?
I'm Miss Marites Caparas.
I didn't get that. Can you say again slowly?
Marites Caparas.
Marite.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Marite. I'd like to talk a little bit for a minute about, the idea of being part of the family. This is sometimes a difficult situation. I think very important to feel like you want to bring people into your heart in a sincere way, the way we bring family into our, the way that we relate, and of course, very sincere and allowing ourselves to build feelings of, of caring and loving perhaps. But you must at some point be minded that we're not family. We're different. We're not family. We are professionals. And we need to have so that sometimes clouds our ability to make, the right decisions. So, they don't let doctors, nurses operate on, on family members. But I mean, the idea is that we're not part of the family. And especially in the beginning, we are strangers. You are strangers, in spite of your, heart, salted, or to be, it may not feel that they want you as part of their family. They want you as a professional caregiver and us and caring and love, the way we love people that are close to us. We are professional. Emphasize, we will, the circle of the important around very of, they're 24 hours, you're expected to, to perseverance is. But I would say that you kind of in the beginning family, even though this is, like we want to be accepted, we want to be appreciated, but we are professionals and we're there to do our job. Okay. And that's also to protect us as the caregiver. Anyone else would like to share that from his or her experience in previous situations, what they think is important in values in caregiving? Okay. Anat, has anyone written something about that in the chat? Anat, are you with us?
There are no comments in chat, sir.
Okay, Margarita,
quite
you're
on.
back with us. Okay, so let's continue a little bit with our presentation about another subject, the gender aspect in caregiving work. Okay, this is a big issue as well. Gender, we are men or women or betweens on the spectrum of what genders are identified about gender issues, but nonetheless, the family you are going to be dealing with are probably very traditional and have very traditional expectations about that. A few women, there are also many men who are caregivers, especially when a man needs to be cared for. Some of the female caregivers provide care for a man or live in the home where a man lives, and some of the male caregivers provide care for a woman or live in a home where a woman may live. Although women usually take care of children, adults, parents, spouses, and other family members, there are also men who have this ability, naturally have the ability to care for others with empathy, compassion, concern, and love, but men also have the caregiving abilities. Your caregiving qualities are an asset. Be proud of them and use your caregiving abilities to provide good quality care. Okay, well, this is being a young, healthy person coming into a disabled person's life, because it's not just their home, like like I described, but it's also into their life. And in spite of the fact that they may be, anxious and waiting for this, help that they need desperately, perhaps they also have some other negative feelings about that as well. Perhaps they're not even aware of the kind of feelings that they would have once you're in a situation. Sometimes you expect things to be so wonderful and this and that, and then, other things come around. So like I said, being minded and being sensitive to the other person and how he's responding, how he's reacting is part of our professional responsibility and to that. So sometimes when you come into a home where there is a man, you treat him gently, kindly, you smile a lot, you touch him in a gentle way. That is personal hygiene. That's part of the deal. And sometimes it can be misinterpreted because perhaps, this is a new experience for having someone as young, vibrant, person touching him in his personal, hygiene situation may around kinds of thoughts, different kinds of feelings, and may be misinterpreted. And so, of course, it's always the caregiver's responsibility to respond in a proper way, to say, no, this is not appropriate, this is not what is, involved, and to voice things and to be very adamant about it. Sometimes it may provoke jealousy if a man is being taken care of and the wife all of a sudden feels, not necessary the caregiver cooks better, cleans better, smiles nicer, has a nicer, attitude, where she may be tired and angry already with the situation, and vice versa for a man. Sometimes there might be a child, an adult child living in the home if it's an elder person. So there are a range of different emotions that may be provoked by just your being there. It has nothing to do with you personally, but just the situation may arise. And try to understand what's going on, try to clarify your intentions, the situation is that, appropriate, not appropriate, and so on. Try to share with other family members what is going on. And of course, if the situation isn't taken care of in a proper way, then it may lead to, mismanagement and disappointment. So being a man or a woman, taking care of a man or taking care of a woman, it doesn't really matter. All of those issues can arise, and it is important to be minded and to take the responsibility to manage that. Okay, gender issues when treating a man or being close to a patient or a spouse, sexual harassment can occur, and it's important to be aware of it. So, feelings and thoughts and talk about sexual behavior or managing, issues is one thing, but harassment and being aggressive is something else. And here is a YouTube presentation that we'd like to share with you that, can probably be helpful if you do have an occasion to deal with this situation, and you're welcome to look at it at your own time. So again, I invite you to discuss and to share with us your thoughts if you've had similar situations, experiences in your past, work life. Do you have any concerns about being a man or a woman as a caregiver in the situation? Do you think that caregiving may be easier or more difficult, and perhaps why? And do you think caregiving can be, easier for a man or for a woman? I invite you to share your thoughts. Anyone like to open your microphone and share?
Did any of you had an experience of working abroad already or just in caregiving?
With experience of being caregiver. For me, there is no difficult if you are a man or a woman, if you are a caregiver, because especially we take this professional and we are saving lives, and especially we accept this because discrimination is not allowed for saving life. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for saying that. You must understand that in many ways, their life saving them, period. And this, you're thinking correctly, caregiving out there. And anyone had, not children missing out on issues, final have this, had some kind of person in a real opportunity, gender, how important, and they're probably not part of their life because being elderly, perhaps they haven't had the opportunity, and this is kind of new kind of a situation, using the internet, using Zoom, using all of these, mechanisms to connect people. So in times of being being isolated and separated, it's very important that you try to see how your skills in using these kind of instruments in enhancing your client's life, to assist them in connecting, that being someone to them, all of those things for people that are isolated that could, I think, that excite you. Any other subject that's anyone?
Does any of you have an experience of caregiving to the opposite gender? For example, if you, were those of you who had already some experience that took care of, female workers took care of male client, or the opposite, and male client took care of female client? And if you didn't, then I would still like to hear what do you think, on this topic. What do you think? How you will should at least approach this situation? Because some of you, receive. I mean, all of you already received the contract, but some of you are supposed to be now in a situation of taking care of the opposite gender. So, what do you think about that? How you prepare yourself towards this situation?
Hi, can I add something?
Yes, please do.
All right,
Yes,
yeah.
please.
So, in regards to a different gender, I would like the idea that you have professional all the time, because you should know, we should know our limitations, because I like what you have mentioned earlier in regards to that, so that you will not be misunderstood, or we will not be misunderstood, the way we treat them, the way we touch them, the way how we look at them. So we have to be really professional all the time. So I really agree with what you have mentioned.
Absolutely. I see that we have some men in the group. Would any one of the men like to gender issue? Anyone brave want to say something about that? Usually we have a lot of women.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
Good
Regarding
morning.
with issue, working in a different institution like hospital, nursing homes, handling different kinds of patient. So gender issue, whether you are caring for a man or a professional, providing their special needs, it is so, ma'am.
Okay. You're not, anxious about any of that. Okay, good. That's a very professional attitude. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Anyone else like to say something before we continue? Okay.
Or Paul, what about you? Can you hear me?
Mm.
Or it's too loud? Can you? Okay, good.
I can, yes. For me, only I can share is that based on my own experience in the hospital, we handle a lot of patients with disabilities. Most important thing is a maximum tolerate. You must not tolerate the patient. I've been taking care of my grandmother, so it is very easy for me to cope up with the other patients for gender situation, even if it's a man or a woman. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We had a little difficulty hearing what you said, but if I understood correctly, you've had a mother and other patients in a care facility, if I understood correctly, and being a professional, it was not an issue. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's, that is, yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, so talk a little bit about intercultural encounters. Intercultural differences are differences. Yes? Sorry.
And
Okay.
actually would like to comment also related to Paul's last comment.
Sure.
Because Paul mentioned actually a very important thing. It's also somewhat related to the first part of today's session, related to tolerance, because there is a reason that we're talking about this specific issue, and because it's sensitive and it's really important to set the boundaries. But I also just want to maybe emphasize and maybe expand the topic that Paul just mentioned, because we also need to remember that that's not only gender barriers or differences or whatever you will call it you might have with the person that you will take care of. It also will be probably, in addition to that, age difference, and experience, life experience, and on one hand, and then also the difference between you being somewhat stronger because you're the person who is assisting, and your client is the person who needs your assistance. Yes, so there is a other additional
Imbalance.
yeah, additional things that might create additional gaps or differences that you might need to see how to overcome, and not necessarily sometimes overcome, but just to build a relationship and to work together to a certain extent, taking into consideration those things as well, and for that matter, again, I'm going back to tolerance being mentioned by Paul, something that yeah, might be very helpful and mindful whenever you're approaching this whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Margareta. Anyone else like to comment or add something? Thoughts, experiences? Okay. And then there's the issue of cultural differences that we haven't spoken about yet. Different cultures perceive and understand and interpret, behaviors and so on. Intercultural differences are differences in traditions, food, norms, people, ethnic groups, speakers of different. Every culture has its own way of defining conflict, passing messages, resolving conflict, to express emotions and to talk about emotions. Obviously, a lot of immigrant nations, you may already know some kinds of people, religious, non-religious, America in their life. And so bringing with them, obviously, their cultures and their habits and their food and their spices and their smells. I don't think there are any Jews immigrating from the Philippines to Israel in the last 50 years. We probably have a few things in common, obviously, in spite of our differences, but you are very different than anything that's that. Israelis have a tendency in general as a culture to be using body language, facial expressions, all no. This is a very nice gesture. Let's all do this. Kind of cup your fingers together and you wave your hand up and down. And what does that mean? When you say, in addition to all of that, rega, rega, 1 minute, 1 minute. A rega is a minute, okay, an instant. And usually if people don't understand you or are, impatient or whatever, you say rega, rega. And that kind of brings you right into the mainstream. A lot of hand and body language is involved, touching, getting close, maybe using a lot of passion off by it, not necessarily fighting, not necessarily, being violent in a verbal manner, just the way people are. This is how they discuss usual everyday issues with a lot of passion. You turn on the Israeli television, they all talk at once, and they're sitting around the table, nobody is listening, just voicing their opinion louder and louder and louder. You may encounter that, and you must be very patient and try to understand. Perhaps you'll encounter it, family discussions, the way people, interact and so on. Very direct and usually very loud. You don't have to be that way. You just have to understand the situation, that it may not necessarily mean that there's any violence involved. It just means that this is how people respond to each other. But you must be minded about, when you're living with someone and they have all kinds of habits, all kinds of, personal, how should I say it, routines. You must be very careful to notice that and to try to allow them to follow their routine. And, when you're in someone's home, not to move things, not to change the place of where things are. You can ask questions about it, tell you stories about where they got this and that, knickknacks, pictures, whatever, books, and so on, not to move things around. Very important also to understand what your personal space is, where you're sleeping, where you can put your food. In Israel, many families follow kashrut laws, which means that in the kitchen, they have dietary limitations about meat and milk and so on in the refrigerator, on the cooking utensils, on the stove, on everything and anything. And so, depending on each family does it differently. So you must be minded to ask. Kitchen is, don't be insulted. Don't be put off if they, get anxious about you touching something or moving something. just ask a lot of questions, be minded that it is very important. Okay, it is very important to them. And of course, you must have your own space. If they don't want you to put your food in their refrigerator at the beginning or on the counter in the kitchen, then they must have a space for you to be able to do that. If they don't want you to use their utensils, their kitchen pots, pans, whatever, it all has to be discussed in an open and in a very, in a very relaxed tone of voice, where what you would be expected to do, and it is your home for the next, all of your general needs must be attended to. How to, where you take your shower, how much water you use, hot water, cold water, people pay for that owned, and so on and so forth. And you must have to you, maybe offensive professionals, list client, okay, where you so every, or it's negotiate about shared space, sit in the garden, you sit in the patio, or if you're not doing something in your own room, all of those things must be, negotiated, you make a discourse not to be insulted, at least not in the beginning, and voice your needs as well. Be patient, give yourself time, and read books appropriate to have a presentation. Would like to share and something or anything about their experience working abroad?
Paul, you told us about your experience. Was it abroad or in the Philippines?
It is in the Philippines, ma'am. However, I have an experience. I have dated.
You
Hear you.
Please turn.
I have an office and a poly friend to communicate first months. So we can maybe be kind.
And all of them. And I understand. I hear people talking. Anyone want to share an experience about learning a new language or being in a different country in a work situation or otherwise? Anyone? Well, learning a new language is difficult. I don't know, Paul, if your experience on your boat or ship has brought you, using English or another, language that perhaps but learning a new language is a challenge in its own. I highly recommend that, in the beginning words a day, write them down, and, you will empower your way. Take a note for every day, a few new phrases or new words, and that will be, kind of a base for them to guide you instead of not you only guiding them through, anyone else?
May I Tagalog and English? Have you ever tried to learn another language?
Mandarin, ma'am.
Hi,
Wow,
Jasmine.
good.
What do you speak? Mandarin, Chinese. Oh, wow.
Uh,
Okay.
Because
Very good.
I've been to Taiwan for 9 years now. Work as a factory worker.
Okay. So that was okay. 9 years is a long time. So, okay. But the experience of learning a new language definitely will, will come in handy. And of course, obviously China. So you'd like to share? Oh, please share.
Taking care of 3 children. Especially they sleep in the morning, not at night. They sleep 4 a.m. in the morning, like that, early 11 o'clock in the morning. So I was thinking, are they have enough sleep to do something? They always say quickly, and wait, 1 minute, wait. So after 1 minute, don't, yeah, and them like your every day.
Hourly in terms of shares, only, time they say things, all active and kids in a different culture, in a different country.
Even in your own country, in the Philippines. No, and nothing on the chat.
Okay. So what have you heard about Israelis? Coming back to that, perhaps you have some, some ideas of what to expect, what you've heard from friends or family or the internet or news, and what maybe you have concerns about Israeli culture or politics. And if you have any, any questions about issues that you're thinking about, you're welcome to ask, share. Anyone? Anna, have you heard anything about Israelis? that you'd like to, share with us, perhaps?
What made you come here?
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard some things about it. Israel is well known in the world.
Can I say something?
Please do.
Yeah, based on what I have heard that Israel is a mixture of different religions, and it is divided in some different traditions and cultures. So that's some basic of what I just read.
Okay. Okay. Have you had any experience with Jewish people in your past in any way?
No, this is going to be the very first time, just in case. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's going to be an adventure for all of you, I'm sure. And yeah, anyone else like to share if they've had some information or authority, whatever's on your mind, you're welcome to voice.
No, now
There any
When you have in Israel, we always like to think of ourselves. Yeah, you'll find it exciting and inspiring, and hopefully it'll be, worthwhile experience, and that all of your dreams will be fulfilled. Okay. So if there's no one else that'd like to share or ask anything, then I think we can perhaps adjourn, Margarita, until our next session.
Yeah.
Remember how we finished it yesterday with the Hebrew lesson? That we said Shabbat.
Yes.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Right. So I told you today is here. We're going to Shabbat. It's time to say Shabbat Shalom. And thank you everyone for participating, rejoicing today. Thank you. And a bit or soon, I will send you more links. Okay, I hope you'll get to watch on Saturday. Okay, on Shabbat, you'll have time. And we'll see you again on Sunday afternoon. Anything else, Margarita?
And the new word for today is lehitraot. Lehitraot. Right.
And rega.
Rega is good with each hand. You can do one or two.
Shirley's doing
wait a
perfectly,
minute.
but all of you can do it. Even watching.
Right. One or two.
Wait a minute.
It's very good. Rega. 1 minute, please. That means you're in the loop.
And don't forget, 1 minute, it's flexible.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Middle Eastern
Thank
time.
you, everybody.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toda.